Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a cheeky little half of Exile 2 build guide from yours truly. Okay, so today I'm going to be showing you a build I've been cooking up for quite a few days now. It's a Galvanic Shards Witchhunter. So, as I said, started cooking this build up a few days ago, and it's going very well, and I was very impressed with what I've made. I wanted to do a little build guide, so in this video I'm just going to be, showing you all of the things from the skill gems, the passive tree to my gear, and then I will be also doing a written build guide on the max roll planner, and I'll leave that in the description below. So if you want, you can use that as well. That's if you want to do this build. If you like what you see, go for it. I don't mind. If you like it, play it. It's a very good build. I'd recommend. But yeah, if you do like these types of videos, make sure you leave a like, maybe even subscribe, because I am planning to do more videos like this, not just on PoE 2, but maybe last Epoch. And that's about it, because Diablo 4 shit. Enjoy, let's get into it. So, Galvanic Shards. Basic mapping skill is all we do in maps is hold down left click, or for me left click, you'll hold down your Galvanic Shards and everything will die. So what we have is Rapid Attacks 2, gives us more attack speed. Elemental Armament 2, more elemental damage, 25% to be exact. And then we have Fork, so this basically makes our Galvanic Shard projectiles ricochet across or between enemies. So when you shoot one enemy, the bolts will hit other enemies near them, which is just really good. It's really good for damage, and it gives us more of a chance to proc our heralds. And then we have Nimble Reload. I'd say it's pretty mandatory on this skill. It gives us so much reload speed. It's a must-have, especially because this season they kind of, I wouldn't say nerfed, but obviously Galvanic Shards used to have a lot more bullets in one round. It used to have like 7 or something, but they took it down to just 1 this season. However, the trade-off with that was more damage. And with all the nodes on the passive tree and the different support gems, you can bring it back up to a pretty fast rate of fire, as well as all the other nodes on the tree, which gives you like a chance to not consume a bolt. Plus, I just had it all before, there is a new support gem, lineage support gem, which just gives you a 35% chance to load a bolt into your crossbow on kill. That is, I'd say, a must-have. However, it's 3 divines. I don't have 3 divines. Not many people do. So that's something you can work towards. It's something I'm going to work towards, and I'll probably slot it in this 5th gem here, because it'll give us a lot more just speed, because we'll be gaining so many free bolts, and that might give us the opportunity to take Nimble Reload out of here, because we'll be getting so many free bolts. And then we could put like another damage gem in here, which gives us more damage. But yeah, that's that. And then PS last, that just makes our Galvanic Shard projectiles go through enemies, hitting more enemies, proccing more heralds, more explosions, more AoE, more damage. So we're going to move on to the bossing skills here. We have 4 skills in the rotation. Don't worry, it's not that daunting. It might seem a lot, but it's very simple. So you go into the boss, Voltaire mark them, then you shoot a Stormcaller arrow at them. That'll shock them, guaranteed. And then, once they're shocked, switch to Shock Burst rounds, pop a little emergency reload, because that gives you just a bit more damage, and then just Shock Burst around the boss. Bob's your own call, they'll be dead in seconds. So let's just go through the skill gems here. For each skill, 48 mark, more duration. Then we've got Overcharge, so shocks caused by the skill are then reflected back to me, and then giving me more magnitude of shocks, so more damage on bosses. Concentrated Area, more damage. Lightning Attunement, more damage. Okay, and then Shock Burst rounds, pretty simple. Lightning Attunement, just 25% damage. Fresh Clip, damage every time I reload, and my attack speed's pretty high, so I'm reloading quite often, so that's just more damage. Elemental Armament, more damage. Rapid Attacks, 25% increased attack speed. And then we have Elemental Focus, which is 25% more damage, and that's just great for bossing because it just kills them in seconds. And then Stormcaller Arrow, we take this because of its shock chance here, 500% more chance to shock. And then you pair this with the shock support gem, it's guaranteed to shock every time, so it's really good to have for bossing. So we have a lightning exposure, so it exposes the boss for 8 seconds when you shock them, so it makes them more susceptible to more damage. And then lasting shock, the shock lasts for longer. And then, I don't really know why I have this, but you know, it's just a little more damage, and then yeah, shock. And then emergency reload, cooldown recovery, so increased cooldown recovery rate. And then prolonged duration, so more skill effect duration on emergency reload. Moving on to the buffs of the build, so I'll start from the bottom here. Herald of Thunder. So this is the main herald that will be proccing, or the main buff that will be proccing whenever we kill an enemy. So when we kill a shocked enemy, Herald of Thunder procs, right? So we're going to slot in lightning achievement, so more lightning damage. Magnified area 2. A lot of area at the cost of some damage, but I think it's a good trade-off because it's literally hitting enemies completely off the screen, and then you pair this with a long shot, so you do more damage to enemies the further away they are. That pairs really well, I think, and just gives you so much damage. And then Elemental Armament 2, more damage. Let's move on to Herald of Ash. So basically this just makes the enemies that I kill explode into a big ball of fire on death. So we have more area here. Cannibalism, so I just get life back on every enemy I kill. And then Fire Mastery, just a level to the skill, bit more damage. And then Wind Dancer, this is our main defense buff here. This just gives us more evasion, which equals more defense, so it's good to have. And then I have Blind on here, so when enemies hit me, I have a chance to blind them. Well, not a chance, it guarantees to blind them, which is good. And then Maim, so whenever enemies hit me, I maim them, so I'm pretty sure this just, yeah, slows them, and they have reduced evasion rating. And then the last buff we have is Overwhelming Presence. This just makes enemies more susceptible to shock. This is great for bosses because you can shock them a lot easier. And yeah, that's basically what it's for. There we go. Those are the skills, and I'll go over it one more time for you. So in maps, you literally hold down left click and just watch every enemy die and explode. And then for bossing, Voltaic Mark, Stormcaller Arrow, Emergency Reload, and then Shot Burst rounds, and the boss will die. There you go. Okay, so let's get into the Ascendancy passive tree first. So I'll go from right to left. So firstly, I went for Zealous Inquisition. This is my favourite part of Witchhunter, this skill right here, because it just makes enemies explode with like this on-kill effect, which is just so cool. It's why I love this class. And I think it's just great because it gives you so much clear in maps. It really helps the build. I did originally have the 2 points in here. I mean, I don't even know. For bossing, it could give you more damage. But for mapping, not really. I think for mapping, this just gives you so much more damage. Such an easier time because... And although it says 10% chance, because you're killing so many enemies at once, it's proccing almost every time you hit an enemy in one pack. And it's just so satisfying. So yeah, we take this, and then we take cooldown recovery, as well as area effector. But the next significant node we take is Witchbane, so enemies have concentration equal to 40% of their max life, and then you break that concentration when you hit an enemy, and that's equal to 100% of damage dealt. But then enemies regain 10% of concentration every second if they haven't lost concentration in the past 5. So that's a nice damage boost. Moving up this bit, you got this one, damage to enemies on low life. Good stuff. But we mainly take the Culling Strike. We go up here because these two nodes are just really good. So Culling Strike, you kill normal enemies instantly if their life is at 30% or below, and then Magic at 20%, and Rare at 10%, and then Unique at 5%. And then Decimating Strike is pretty similar, but then hits against enemies, but full life enemies remove between 5% and 30% before the damage of the hit is applied. So combining these two basically allows us to one-shot a lot of enemies, and especially rare enemies, because it removes a big chunk of their first bit of health, and then when you get them lower, it just insta-kills them. So it's really good to have. So that's the Witchhunter tree. It works really well, as you saw in the showcase. Especially Zealous Inquisition, I think it's just so satisfying, and I love this skill. Well, not skill, I love this node, and you know, what it does. It's a very satisfying build. And yeah, those are the skills we take. If you wanted a bit more bossing damage, then yeah, feel free to go for this. But I honestly don't feel like it's worth swapping this out, because, yeah, as I said, the clear is insane. Moving on to bang average normal nodes of the skill tree. So we're just going to take the average path down here, projectile damage, and then we go for all that juicy two-handed weapon damage here. And then we keep going down. We take these movement speed nodes here, so more movement speed and attack speed if you've killed recently. We're killing a lot, so free speed. And then we get a bit of herald damage here, which is really nice to have, and area effect. Which is nice to have because we're proccing heralds every time we shoot Galvanic Shards, and that is where a lot of our damage comes from, so that is very good to have. Reload speed on the crossbow. So moving down to the juicy bits now. So all of this bit here is just elemental damage. So this is more chance to shock. We love shock. Shock gives us more damage, so we take that. And then attack damage penetrates 50% of enemy elemental resistances. Just more damage. And then down here, we take all of this. And then we take this one because it's really good. It's very lucky. But yeah, lucky things are rolled twice and the better result is used. So, great. Great. More attack speed here. And then we go down here, mainly for a 30% chance to not consume a bolt if you've reloaded recently. It's just good. It makes the rate of fire and just the overall feel of Galvanic Shards better. And we combine it with this 30% chance when you reload a crossbow to be immediate. So it just feels really good. And then we take these nodes up here. Moving on to the upper half of the tree. So we go all the way up here, and you may be wondering, why are you going so far away from the start? It's because all of the juicy elemental damage is up here as well. So we go down to here, more elemental damage, and then we go here. This is basically for bossing, because you get more magnitude of shock you inflict, so that just makes your shocks even more damaging, which is incredible for bossing. And then shock duration, which is also insane. It's what you want, so then you don't have to keep applying shock to bosses mid-fight. And then we go down here to get this Herald skill, which is really good. You just get 40% increased lightning damage while affected by Herald of Thunder. So that's just free lightning damage whenever we proc Herald of Thunder. Brilliant. And then we go down here, we get more all of this, so more elemental damage, area of effect. And then I'm only level, if I could show you, 85. So we've got quite a few more skill points to get. But I'm planning to go up here, take all of these, just more damage. Damage penetrates 50% lightning res. And then I'm going to go for Harness the Elements. So that's just 20% more damage whenever we shock, which is great. And then I was going to originally go here, right? But my chance to shock is already so high, it doesn't really matter. And this build isn't built around crits, right? So that wouldn't matter. So I think what I'm going to do is go down here, get a bit more, survivability. And then we're going to go for this attack speed. And then we'll sock it if you want. Well, that's the plan. I just go for all of this, and then this. You don't need the attack speed, it's just if I get to like level 95 plus, I'll go for this. If not, I'll stick with, these being the last skills. I forgot this. My bad. This just gives us a lot more survivability, a lot more defenses. So we take +1 to evasion rating per 1 armor and equipped gloves. So you just stack a load of armor on your gloves, and it gives you a load of evasion rating. And then just a bit more evasion rating as extra armor. So extra armor. So it kind of takes this node, gives you defenses, and then you take this node and it gives you more defenses from this node, which is great. And that's the passive skill tree. It's, you know, pretty simple. The premise is crossbow, reload speed here, a bit more reload speed here, elemental damage, elemental damage, elemental damage, and then herald damage, herald damage. Pretty simple. Cool. And last but not least is the equipment I'm using. The items. So, let's start off with the most important in a build, in any build, the weapon. So, as you can see, this is a pretty cracked crossbow. I did spend 1 divine on this. But honestly, you do not need an expensive crossbow. I was doing it with a 1 Exile crossbow before, and I was still clearing maps. This just obviously gives me more damage, but you don't need it. You don't need to spend mass amounts of currency on this build. It works with just, what, 30 Exiles? That's really all you need to get this build going. But that's my crossbow. You want added lightning damage, gives you so much damage, I can't stress it enough. Projectile skills, pretty mandatory on any crossbow. And then attack speed is great, it just allows us to shoot galvanic shots quicker. And yeah, there you go, increased elemental damage with attacks, just more damage, just damage, that's all you want. But when you're getting a crossbow, just make sure, I'd say the main stats you want is this added lightning damage and projectile skill levels. So, getting into the helmet, we have armor, evasion, more armor and evasion, because we're stacking armor and evasion, so just get as much of that as you can. And then, I just go for life, and a pretty mandatory one is the percent of armor applies to elemental damage. I think this is great because it just gives you damage for stacking defenses, so when you're getting defenses, you're gaining damage, which I think is just great. And then the cold resistance isn't mandatory. Whenever you see resistances on my gear, just go for the resistances you need for your situation. But yeah, try and go for a resistance you need in whatever your case is. Moving on to the chest. So, standard again, we're stacking armor, we're stacking evasion, getting life, and I'm getting some resistances. Pretty simple, just go for the resistances you need in your situation. And yeah, stone threshold isn't needed, it just came with the item, I didn't really want that, but there we go. Amulet, so, you know, I'm not gonna lie, I got really lucky with this amulet. I dropped it at the start of maps, and it's insane, it's worth a few divines, I think. And you may be wondering, why aren't you selling it? Because it's really good for my build. Yeah, it has increased spell damage, which serves no purpose to me, but it gives me life, spirit, projectile skills, elemental resistances, plus fire res. I'd say the main thing you want on your amulet, because it's pretty hard to get spirit and projectile skills on the same amulet, the main thing you want is that plus spirit, because we have, how many buffs? We have 4 buffs running, and the spirit buffs you get from the campaign just won't cut it, so you need the spirit on your amulet. And if you're a bit indecisive between projectile skills and spirit, go for the spirit, because the spirit is very, very crucial, because we want all of these buffs running. And then, yeah, just go for life, and then go for resistances, whatever suits you in the moment. Cool. And then the rings are, you know, the same really. Just go, I mean, for the rings, I'd go with, you know, a topaz ring, a sapphire ring, a ruby ring, because it's great for resistances. But, you know, stat-wise on the rings, you just want lightning damage. I get some evasion, life. Rarity is good, but when you're starting out, I'd go for some more resistances, maybe some plus to int, dex or strength, and mana per enemy killed is a pretty vital one to have, because these skills aren't cheap to use. So that's good to have. Lightning damage, life, mana, rarity, mana per enemy killed, and then get a resistance, whatever suits your situation in that time. Okay. And then the gloves, as I said before, this synergizes with the skill node here. +1 evasion rating per 1 armor on your equipped gloves, right? So on the gloves, you want to stack as much armor as possible to gain as much evasion as possible. But stat-wise on the gloves, I just go for increased armor, and then more added lightning damage, attack speed, and then more armor. And then, if you're feeling bougie, go for some rarity, and then get a resistance, whatever is suiting your needs at that very time. Like I say for any other piece of gear. I should probably stop saying the same thing, but I won't. And then, onto the build, okay? Life, mana, strength, resistances. Honestly, I'd say the main things you want on your belt is strength and the life. The mana is good to have, but I'd say strength, life, and the resistances. The belt is there to just give you a load of resistances. On my boots, movement speed, I'd go for 30 plus, but 35% movement speed boots with the stuff you want on there, pretty expensive. So I go for 30%, and then we get evasion, life, resistances, and rarity. I didn't really want to get life regen, but it just was there because I wanted rarity boots. But I'd just go for movement speed, added evasion, life, and then resistances, whatever resistances you need. And I will not forget the bow. You don't really need a specific bow. I just chucked the bow in there, which I had in my inventory, and it does the job. Maybe go for one with lightning damage, and then I just chucked a random quiver in there with lightning damage and projectile skills on. That's it. That's just for Stormcaller Arrow, for your bossing. You don't need a good bow and a good quiver, you just need a bow and a quiver, just so you can shoot it. But yeah, that's the gear. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's not expensive gear except my crossbow, but as I said, you don't need this crossbow for the build to perform well. Just go for a crossbow with as much added lightning damage as possible with projectile skills, and the build will just ramp through maps. Yeah, there you go. It's a build. It works. It's fun. It's satisfying. It's great at mapping. It's great at bossing. And you're using arguably the coolest ascendancy in the game. I mean, it's called Witchhunter. Let's be serious here. That's so cool. That's the build. If you liked it, leave a like. And if you liked it that much, subscribe. Okay? And if you want more stuff like this, let me know. If you have any suggestions, any recommendations for the build, I'd love to hear it. Leave it in the comments below. Yeah, thank you for watching. If you do use the build, enjoy. I wish you all the best. You know, leave any questions in the comments if you have any as well. And yeah, goodbye all.